Hello, everyone. I just want to open my slides, so just give me a second. Okay, yeah. So is it going to work? Yeah. So hello, everyone. My name is Sandra Kuchina. I'm Eden Vice President, and welcome to the European Open and Digital Learning Week. For the whole week, we have been already having some sessions. Today, we're having a session on the title, Shaping Tomorrow's Education Strategies for Delivering High-Quality Teaching and Learning in Transforming World. I welcome you all to join us. You can use the chat to say hi, and you can use chat to put some comments. For questions, please use Q&A. And I'm very happy today to have with me really distinguished speakers. So let me present them briefly. As I said, the title of the session is Shaping Tomorrow Education. And in this session, we are going to explore the future of teaching and learning. We will reflect on current educational practices and outlining the steps needed to ensure high quality education in tomorrow's world. We will talk about evolving demands of education in the face of technological advances and the changing students' need and global challenges. We will identify what is already done and where are the gaps. And we will focus on how educators, policymakers, institutions, associations can work together to create an adaptive, flexible, equitable, and innovative learning environment. So today I invited speakers who really can say something about that. First of all, with us is Professor Josep Maria Duart from Universitat Oberta Catalunya in Spain. He's former Vice President for Postgraduate Studies and Lifelong Learning and former Director of International Graduate Institute at Open University of Catalonia. Today, he is a research professor in Educational Sciences and Technology Department, and also he is Eden past president and at the moment Eden Digital Learning Europe Management Board member, and he is representing Eden with us today. Then we'll have Dr. Farah Benani from who is Dean of Math, Science and Engineering and Elgin Community College in the United States. And she is responsible for overseeing the strategic planning, development, and administration of academic programs in one of the institution's most pivotal divisions. She also brings global perspective to higher education, making her uniquely equipped to cultivate international partnership and promote cross-cultural collaboration. And she's a highly respected scholar and presented, and she has published and presented extensively on the topic from STEM pedagogy to online learning technology, AI in education, to global perspective of distance learning, and so on. And today she is with Kay Novak, who is Assistant Director of Learning Design from Front Range Community College in USA. Kay is Assistant Director of Learning Design, and she has a decade of experience as a learning designer and started in distance learning as an online student success coordinator. She championed and led multiple grants on innovation, game-based learning, online learning, and emerging technologies. And she is also a PhD student in education at the University of Colorado, Denver. And both of them, Farah and Kay, are represented today United States Digital Learning Association. So I'm happy to have them with us. Then we have Benoit Berthoud from University Sorbonne Paris Nord in France, who is senior lecturer and was before the vice president in charge of relations with socioeconomic world of the Sorbonne Paris Nord University and director of continuing education services of the Paris Pantheon Sorbonne University. And he's currently the vice president of the Digital Engineering and Technology University. He's in charge of developing international relations for the French University Lifelong Learning Education Network. So he's representing EUCAN today with us. Then we have Dr. Nicola Johnson, who is Executive Director of Canadian Digital Learning Research Association in Canada. She is leading expert in macro-level digital learning trends. Also, she leads annual longitudinal research studies exploring technologies and practices related to digital learning at post-secondary institutions. She is also an independent, she has also independent research in consulting practice and helps clients to develop future-proof strategies and policies for technology use in teaching and learning. And she also has research experience, which includes examining the implication of artificial intelligence in education, exploring potential futures for higher education, defining and operationalizing key terms associated with digital learning, and so on. And she's today joining us as in front of International Council for Open and Distance Education, ICDE. And the last one, but not least, Dr. Gil Farrell, who is European Program Director for the First EdTech Consortium and Operation and Partnership Manager for EUNIS, European University Information System. She has two roles, as you have heard, supporting EdTech communities in Europe, one for the EUNIS, and also over there she's a leader of its e-learning and technical special interest group. And in First EdTech Consortium, she's European Program Director, and the consortium is a non-profit organization developing and maintaining open standards, facilitate an open and trusting digital learning ecosystem. So I think that we have actually the global experts with us today, representing associations who very much working on the topic of digital education, how it should look like and what should be done in order that jointly we can make the best possible today and the future we want. And before we start with our panel, I would like the audience to join as well. You can see here we have the Slido. And if you go to Slido, you can use your mobile phones, hashtag 2686974. First question is, what do you find the biggest challenge in teaching and learning today? So it could be one or two words. Just give us your first thoughts. What do you think is the biggest challenge in teaching and learning today? So we are looking forward to your answer there. While we are waiting for your answers, let me start with the first question we have prepared, and I would like to set my first question, which is, can you briefly give your view on education landscape today? As we have achieved some changes since the time before the pandemic, and has the pandemic been the catalyst for implementation of digital technologies into educational process, or we have already forgotten about it? So where are we standing today? And did actually the COVID pandemic had any influence on what we are doing today? Or there are some other issues that we can see at the moment in our landscape today? So maybe Farah, we can start first with you. Okay, you just need to open your mic. You're just turning off the camera, but you didn't turn the mic on. Can you hear us? Farah, is it everything okay? Can you turn on the mic? Okay, while Farah he's having some issues, maybe Nicole, we can start with you. What would be your overview on education landscape today?
Yeah, absolutely. So in Canada, certainly, we've seen that shift, that time before pandemic and now. There, it definitely has been a lasting impact. I think one of the things that's important to know about the Canadian context is when the pandemic hit, there was a long shift to online. So for about a year and a half after the onset of the pandemic, almost all post-secondary, which is tertiary education in
Mhm.
Canada, was online. So throughout the 2020-2021 academic year and even into the 2021-2022 academic year, tertiary students were learning almost completely online. And because of that, both faculty, students, and administrators became familiar with the concept and to some extent comfortable with it. So while before the pandemic, we really saw online learning being very situated. So it would be in pockets throughout the sector. So
Mhm.
for example, we would see that some institutions maybe would have one or two strong online programs, but it wouldn't be throughout their institution. Whereas now we see it very integrated throughout the system. We see a lot of institutions who previously were had a very strong stance that they were traditional, in-person only, bringing in a lot of online options. For example, my oldest son, he's in his first year of university. He is attending courses in a traditionally in-person institution. However, every single course that he is taking is also offered as a fully online section, which is very new from pre-pandemic. So I would say, from what I'm seeing, that it is much more integrated than it has been before.
Yeah, thank you. I agree that.
I'm back. My apologies for the technical issue.
Okay, Farah, please continue. So we are on the view of educational landscape today.
Well, definitely the pandemic has has been a catalyst in a lot of changes that happen at the digital level. So a lot of technology implementation has been in the classroom. However, post-pandemic era, if you want, there's the digital fatigue in a sense of a lot of technology has been put in place. And the downside is how, for many educators, it has been how can I replicate the face-to-face just into this digital world rather than more looking at it from the perspective in the digital pedagogy, the instructional design process, as well as the scaffolding of learning. So it has the plus in a sense of, yes, finally we're thinking of technology. It is needed. We have to do it. But the downside is in most of the time, and again, because of the pandemic and the time, with a lot of institutions and educators did not have enough time. So most of the online in many institutions that we have right now, those courses are not really truly designed since day one as an online courses. It is more of just flip it. So like in the Zoom right now, I'm teaching you and I'm on the board exactly the same way how I was doing it in the classroom. So that's the downside. The question is more in terms of how can we integrate digital tools in a way that will enhance the learning. And this is a question that a lot of institutions are basically dealing with right now. And it's going back and let's fix what was done. And the one-time catalyst that happened is less certain in a sense of what is happening in the future. How many schools are basically in the process of looking thirdly through the learning system management and making an informed decision in which way to go in terms of what the best way of how we can deliver any content based on the expertise of the subject matter expert, the ID, and the content itself. Not everything could be digital to replicate or to mimic exactly what it is happening in the classroom.
Yeah, definitely. No one says that everything has to be fully online. No one is advocating that. What we want is some amount of digital
Best
presence of digital in order to have the best of
of
both.
both.
In
Correct.
that way. Definitely, when we ask the audience so far about the challenge in teaching and learning today, as we had I would say 2 or 3 years ago, the COVID and pandemic as a challenge. Today you can see in the word cloud, it's AI, you know. So how much do you think we can reflect on what participant says, that actually is AI at the moment catalyst to implement digital technologies into teaching and learning? So who would like to try answer that? Yes, Nicole, please.
Yeah, you know what, I think an important thing that I've noticed from my perspective, and this isn't just specific to Canada, but it's more globally, I've found that when people are talking about AI, they're actually not talking about AI itself. The conversation is actually around academic integrity and assessment. It really, when you break it down to the issue of what they're saying, they're not talking about AI. They're not talking about advances in the technology or how it can be used creatively. They're talking about academic integrity and best assessment practices for, digital or online settings, and being able to prove that the person who is doing the work is the person doing the work.
Yeah, perfectly. Yeah, maybe Gil, you would like to comment on the answers we got from the for the audience. It puts the AI in the middle of everything. You know, what would be your perspective? Is it AI at the moment the biggest challenge to teaching and learning?
Yes and no. I think we've been on this kind of roller coaster, starting with the pandemic, and we've seen variation. There are some universities that, delivered in 3 weeks strategies that they've been trying for 5 years to get into place. We had some achievements, and then we saw this backlash. We want to be back in the classroom, and I think we were just starting to digest that. People rushed back to the classroom, then they started to realize what had been good about the digital environment. And then AI arrived, and we're not even 2 years in yet. And there's been an awful lot to digest, really. And I think I kind of take us back to basics, really. What Farah was saying about how do you choose the right tools for learning. What Nicole says, the conversation's not really about AI. It's about good learning and teaching. And how do you actually define what good learning and teaching looks like? And I think it's really important that every one of us can do that and can define what is what kind of principles underpin learning and teaching in your institution. You don't need to tell academics what to teach or how to teach it, but you should have this set of principles that says what good looks like in your context. And if you can articulate that, you can use that to drive learning design, and ultimately you can use that to to decide what tools you can use, what kinds of learning activities work, what kind of tools you should be using to support them.
Yeah, I agree. But if we look now at other words here, it says student motivation of students' motivation to learn, motivate, flexibility and motivation. So Benoit, what do you think? Why is this motivation so present as a challenge in teaching and learning today?
Well, university, for me, it's kind of a machine for students' projects. In fact, we have to help them to invent some futures, and their motivation is they come with expectation. We have to help them, to shape them, to give them skills. And in fact, when you think it that way, the motivation comes at first, and then we teachers we just have to get along with it and to accompany them with those motivations. But that means we have to have some reference skill frameworks for our teaching program. We say, okay, you are going to the I don't know, telecom and physics networks curriculum. So at the end of your 3 years, you have to master this part, this part, this part. And this is their evaluation for the 3 years. And then we give them some hints, we give them some resources that are linked to the frameworks and stuff. So the idea is kind of make them, to some extent, that autonomy and to help them see where they go. I mean, motivation is, I mean, for me at least, and I think it's kind of shared in French universities, it's something you can't, in fact, provoke. You have to surf on it. Right? It's your first helper, it's your best friend as a teacher. Because the demotivated students, it's a lot of problem. You have to ask, is he at the right place? How can we put him at the right place if he's not in the good curriculum? But that's very complicated because in France, we have a huge demography. So our universities are full of students, in fact. So if you don't have the right spot at the beginning, it's kind of complex, to have other paths, and we are not in a very flexible pathway.
Yeah, I agree. Maybe Joseph, you can add, because you're coming from a fully online university, so how to ensure the student motivation, as it seems that's one of the challenges in teaching and learning today.
Okay. Yes, this is a real big challenge, no? But I think it's motivation is something that is really important also for every teaching and learning process, no? And we, in the case of the open universities or the online universities, usually we have adult students, and in that cases, usually the motivation is so high because they are studying at these universities in order to find a new job or to improve the job that they have at this moment. And this is, of course, a very clear motivation. No? But I insist that we have also to provide a kind of particular teaching and learning methodology in order to invite these people also to find the content also motivating. Not that means that the things that they are learning, not only the final degree that they have that allow the possibility to improve. Not. And another thing that, as an online institution, that we would like to promote is also the learning from your peers, your colleagues, your partners in the classrooms. And I think this is also very important because usually adult people prefer only study by themselves, but I think it's it's important not to learn from your colleagues.
Yeah, I agree. And maybe Kay, you can, in the end, just comment. We have this teachers' role change and a new set of learners and teaching and learning for the unknown. How would you comment that from the point of view of the teachers,
Oh, the teaching and learning for unknown and unknowable futures. I absolutely adore that question. Okay, because there was a video out in the US, it's almost like 15 years old, and it was called Shift Happens. And it said that we will be teaching students for jobs that haven't happened yet. And the thing about for teaching and learning for unknowns and unknowables is that you have to teach students so that they understand what wicked problems are. And meaning wicked problems, meaning problems that don't just have one solution, that aren't multiple choice answers, that you have to teach students for that. And the example that I would give is right now at our community college, and community colleges in the US is 100% admission. Anybody who applies goes to a community college. Just so that I can tell you where we are. We're going, how are we going to teach them about quantum computing? How are we going to teach them the difference between classic computing and quantum computing so that our students, whether they be computer science students or business students or even advanced manufacturing students, that they're going to get those concepts? So for us, it's always putting what's new and what's evolving into the curriculum and to the discussions. That's how we keep teaching for the unknowable. But still, as you're always going to hear, give them the foundations of critical thinking, knowing how to react in disorienting circumstances and dilemmas. And that's when it goes back to teach them how to deal with wicked problems.
Yeah, perfect. And dear participants, all of you, if you want to comment on that question also in the chat or share your experience in the chat, please do. We will go with the questions. Next question I want to ask Joseph: how can education institution adapt their curricula to balance foundational knowledge with digital literacy and critical soft skills, and ensuring students are well prepared for involving global workforce? Sometimes we do have this issue that what we teach is not always in relation to the need of the market. So how to overpass that?
Yeah, I think it's important to thinking from the institutional point of view. I think it's very important to preserve the vision and the mission that the universities have at this moment, and I'm sure all of the universities have this idea, to provide enough knowledge to put these people, not the degrees, the graduate people on the labor market with great skills and capabilities. But the question now is that the world, of course, is changing, and it's changing very quick, as one of the we saw in the previous slide. And in that sense, I think that in order to adapt not everything from the institutional point of view, I think we have to take care in particular to know about our students, about their profiles, what kind of the students the institution have, because that is very important in order to provide a good and clear skills for them, adapted, of course, for a particular context. And also another thing that I believe is really important is to take care of the internal talent, and the professionalism in the university. I'm talking about professors and staff, etc., who is the people who can manage this in order to adapt everything to prepare to this new world. But for me, one of the most important things, of course, is that we need to adapt or maybe sometimes change our teaching and learning methodologies. Because I think this is the most challenging thing that we have to do, not to think that we have to provide authentic activities for the students in order that they can compare and see with the real job and the real world.
Yeah, thank you. Benoit, what do you think about what Joseph said? Do you agree? What would be your point of view on adapting curricula to be up to the needs of today's society?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely agree with Joseph. As I can see it in France, we have two ways of adapting them. The first one is, as I said before, frameworks. We do frameworks for our training program. For each training program, we design those frameworks with stakeholders, alumni, teachers, researchers, and we gather together, at the beginning of the year and at the end of the year, when we have the evaluation of the program by students and when we have the evaluation of the students. And when we mix them, we take the data and we say, okay, we have to improve our frameworks. It doesn't suit, the need of society, the need for society, for stakeholders, and maybe the comprehension for students. Something doesn't pass, they don't understand it, so we have to use it, and we have to evolve, in our frameworks. And the second part is research. We design curriculum which are, as Kai said, which are kind of close to our research project. For example, a research project, when you look at the European Research Council, when you build up a project, you have first state of art, technological panorama, on a given industrial sector. Then you have to formulate a groundbreaking proposition. So you have to invent new skills because you have to make technology advance and becoming more performant. And then you have to define your impact. How do you disseminate those skills? How do you define them? How do you teach them? How do you implement them within society? And what's important for us, is like when a company does a research or development or a technological choice, when she chooses to adopt a new process, she makes a human resource choice. Because she makes a choice in training, she makes a choice in hiring, she makes a choice in the people she wants to work with. So that's really the two ways I think we want to.
And how easy is to adapt the curricula?
Each year.
You do have the frameworks and the research part, but in the practice, how easy is to adapt the curriculum?
No, it's fine. Each year, we have it's mandatory. We have what you call the improvement council each year, and the stronger the frameworks are, the most various the pedagogical ways are. For example, it doesn't care if it's presential, instantial, online, offline. As long as you have the skills and they are defined.
Okay.
But each year we do this meeting and it works for fun.
Oh, perfect. Great. Farah, what is your experience with adapting curricula to balance what the students need today to be employable and active digital citizens. You need to turn on the mic. No, it's still off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Before answering the question, just want to go back to what Benoit has said, as well as Joseph, in terms of while it is easy to change the curriculum for the courses that we have, it's slightly a delayed process here in the US, just because of the process and the curriculum committee, and we have deadlines and when new changes can happen from one academic year to the next academic year for that. So sometimes it's a little bit dragging. To add to what has been said, we, in almost all of our program, we have advisory board committees. And this is basically a committee that is made of, besides subject matter expert professors, researchers, we also collaborate with the industry and the workforce development, in a sense of, for, as an example, the computer science programs, we basically listen to what are the needs, what are the programs needed, and then we go back and we retweak and change. It's easy in a sense, we don't have to change the whole program, but we will make slight modification based on the demand and the need that is happening. Overall, to answer the question in terms of what kind of how can education adapt to the curricula, listening to the advisory board, but also we can never deny we need to have the subject matter expertise. There is the foundational knowledge, but how can we equip our students with the 21st century skills, soft skills, the digital literacy, and quantum computing as a K, which is and should be a foundation in any program, regardless of the major. So you have all of these different parts. So how can we marry them throughout this process that we receive these new freshman students, and we are basically providing this white glove treatment and helping him or her throughout this courses and during their time as they are learning. There are several adaptations that can happen to the curriculum in terms of how can we integrate the digital literacy, which will be part of the program and across all the curricula and the discipline. How can we embed soft skills to develop core subject and good application, any project-based program and any project-based assessment, that will be good application for that. Hybrid interdisciplinary approach, how can we, for example, business course, can they offer the blended of traditional management theory with digital tool? Again, what it is happening right now, what is current, and how can we not change what I was teaching 4 years ago, as an example, because it's no longer relevant. And to add to what Kay mentioned, like, we don't know what are the jobs for the 10 years, but I see we have the civic duty and obligation to equip the students with the skills. Solving problem is and critical thinking. This is what the student need, no matter what job they end up having and what complication will be or what jobs do not exist. So how can we equip them for that? The other two, I will add two more adaptations that can happen at the curriculum. The adaptive assessment tool, and you mentioned earlier the AI. Big fan of AI, and I do a lot of research and presentation, Kay and I, on that. It's the true application of the adaptive learning. It is the changes in the cognitive learning of the student. How to know how to study and how to know how to ask the question. It's not the prompt engineering, although engineering has sometimes a bad connotation when you speak to engineers, but it's more of having equip the student with the tool to help them learn how to ask the LLM and how to be able to be more specific. So you have a different shift that is happening currently. I do use it for my own classes and across the division that I oversee, in terms of how can we help the students learn how to ask, look at the cognitive knowledge, what it is happening. Yes, we are right now in the Gartner hype of the technology, but it is more of what is the long term for that. And you read all the articles in terms of anyone who's not using AI may lose their job, or someone will take the job of someone who knows how to use AI. So that's a good application for us, educator. How can we implement the tool? How can we equip the students? It is there, will not be going anywhere. No different than 1995 with the hype of the internet. Well, because of the internet, we're having this conference, basically. So how can we basically give them the tools and the ammunition? Go ahead. We have equipped you enough that you should be able to apply it and go from there and learn this skill. And the last one, of course, when we think of adaptation, we also have to think of lifelong learner. Education does not stop when I have my bachelor or my master or PhD. It's how can we basically entice the learner of enjoying the learning process and be curious, like, I want to do it. And the advantage of the open education, of the online and all the digital way how we can learn, it did make a lot of difference in the last 15 years in a sense of education. Now I can have it on my phone. I can choose to play a game on my phone, or I can choose to learn.
Yeah, I agree with you. Yesterday I just had a lesson, and I was talking to my students, and I asked them, do you prefer online or face-to-face? And they all said eagerly, face-to-face. That's the real part. Everything which is done online, we miss socialization, and we cannot focus enough. We are not very committed to it, and so on. I said, but you will be lifelong learners one day, so it doesn't stop with the finish of the faculty. And they were just, oh, we didn't think about that, you know. So I'm not sure how students are aware that today we do have lifelong learning, and that it's impossible that you finish the faculty and that you don't need to learn anymore. So that is also an issue. We do have one question.
I just want to add, my apologies, part of the kind of one of the downside or the impact of the COVID is the digital fatigue that happens. So a lot of those students, regardless of the grade, the age, and whatever courses that they were following at that time, it did impact them in a sense of, yes, you have the soft skill, you have the social, but also in a sense on like, I have done it. Yes, it was imposed on all of us worldwide. And like, I don't want to deal with it. I don't want to touch it. So there was a study that was done here in the US, and on average, the students from the high school have lost the equivalent of 18 months of knowledge that happened in 2020 and 21 because of the pandemic. So a lot of the students that we see right now at the colleges and universities, they are lacking in terms of the content that they should have mastered. We have 18 months. So you can only feel for all of us here in the US, we are teaching the content required for the college level course, but we also have to play catch up and help those students because of what happened due to the pandemic.
Yeah, certainly it was really difficult, and we did it somehow, but no one wants to question how we did it, you know, and what we did at that time. Yeah. We do have a question. When we are talking about the adaptation of curricula for students, do we need a curricular reform for initial teacher training? So who would like to answer that question? Do we have volunteers?
Okay, that's your expertise. Go ahead.
Yeah, okay. I see. Kate first, and then Nicole, please.
Okay, I was going to say real quick, adaptation of curriculum for students who need for initial teacher education. I'm assuming that you're talking about the teachers who then teach in, you know, the grade schools and the high schools. I'm going to skip that part. I'm going to go straight to the university. I'm going to talk about the adaptation of curriculum for students. Because that question was kind of asked before, I'm going to say that most institutions, it depends on how rapidly they can respond to that curriculum change. My learning design team, we can help you redesign courses on the fly. We can do it just in time. We can go in there. We can help adapt it. We can make the artifacts. We can help you with that. So if you have a fast learning design team at your university and you have access to them, then it's more a matter of getting buy-in from the faculty to be willing to do that. And I know everybody was talking about administration, making decisions and things like that. Curriculum can be adapted really, really quickly with good learning designers. That's the part that I just wanted to throw in. And
Okay,
there.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, and I want to add too, because I'm thinking about this question in terms of, the higher education tertiary learning context. And I know it differs from, globally what is required of faculty coming into teaching positions. Here in Canada, in many cases, there isn't any initial teacher education for faculty. So I think we have to be very careful, especially for faculty who are coming into subject areas that are outside of the field of education. I think it's important to bear in mind that may not even be that initial teacher education to have curriculum reform too. One of the things in the Canadian context specifically is many faculty are unionized. And so into their agreements, their contracts with the institution, there are limitations on the professional development that they can have and the time that they're required of that. So that's really been a challenge here in Canada in educating faculty and training faculty to be able to teach in an online context or teach with technology integration is, unless they're volunteering their time to learn that willingly, there can't be any training imposed on them necessarily, regardless of how much it's needed. An institution may be very eager to implement initiatives. They may have a very strong instructional design team to adapt the curricula for students, but training the faculty to teach in that way has to be handled delicately because of contracts that exist. The institution may be in violation of the contract if they're requiring faculty to have that. So that initial teacher education kind of opens up a whole box of other issues when we talk about it.
I agree with you. I can share the experience from Croatia where we have the similar as in Canada. We do not, for faculty teachers, we do not require any initial teacher training, or we do not require any training in order to teach, so you can come and teach if you just follow much more the research part, and do the excellence in research than in academic. But maybe here we could talk about future teachers at the faculty of school of teaching, who are learning to be teachers. And in Croatia, it's not so easy to adapt curricula, even that. We do have supporting team. I'm leading supporting team in course design and study program design, but the administrative part, the strategies, and that part, in order to change the curricula, it's huge process. It takes really quite a lot of time to adapt it, and that is not and then that's why the institutions are not so eager to do it, so yeah, that's an issue. I see, Joseph, you wanted to comment as well.
Yeah, just two quick things. One, it's the same here in Spain, that we don't need for the face-to-face universities a particular teaching training, not to be a professor or teacher at the university. But in the case of the online universities, we have, for instance, in our university, we have this kind of course because it's different, not to teach in a face-to-face environment than an online environment. And usually the professors that we have are professors from face-to-face universities, and they need to have the knowledge to use particular tools, skills in order to provide the teaching and learning process in this online methodology. And the second thing is that probably I agree that we have to adapt the curricula for the professors in primary and secondary school, no? But maybe I insist probably when we try to change the curricula, the important thing it's the contents that we have in this curriculum. Probably these contents we don't need to change these contents. So maybe we have to add some ones. But the most important thing is to provide different methodologies to work with these contents. And I think this is a very good way, no? And one of you mentioned this learning, curriculum design, etc. I think this is the best way to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Let's move now. We were talking about the curriculum, the landscape. We are having this buzzword, high quality education. Actually, what is high quality education as such? It's very important that we somehow define it so that we have all the equal understanding about it. And what could be the steps and strategies taken to ensure it? So Gil, maybe you can start here. What is high quality education?
Yeah, I think I'd like to answer that by drawing some threads together from what you've all raised and going back to what I said earlier, that I think every institution needs to know its place in this lifelong learning spectrum that Farah talked about, and what does high quality look like in your context, because it might be very different. Kay talked about a community college. They are taking all comers in you know, you may be thinking in your area about kind of ipsative assessment, not are my students ever going to get to the same level as Harvard students, but have we moved these learners on? Every learner that's come to us, are they doing better than they would have done before? And how can we recognize that? And how can we think about badging and micro-credentials, and not saying because this learner doesn't last 3 years and come out with such a qualification, how do we recognise the bits of learning that they do, and how do we give them something to take away for the future? Benoit, you talked about autonomous learning and, you know, how difficult that is to do, but I think most people in university setting would say, yeah, that's, our learners are autonomous. You know, it's not even a goal, because we just expect students to turn up at university ready to be high performing independent learners. And it's really up to us to teach them how to learn as well. You know, every student doesn't come degree ready. So how do we apply that as a principle? How do we engage students with understanding what good looks like in their subject area? How do we help them to monitor and regulate their own learning? And some of the tools and dashboards we might, you know, provide might be able to help with that. How do we help them recognize different types of feedback they might be getting to support their learning? Because sorry, I'm pointing at where he is on my screen. Joseph talked about peer learning and peer activities. How do you help students understand the value of the feedback that they get from those activities, and how do they actually learn to act upon that to improve their own learning? So there's no single benchmark of quality. It's got to be adapted to your circumstances. And I think, you know, training is, we're not all in the same place in terms of the training that teachers actually get, that lecturers actually get. But if we can describe these principles in a way that they can understand, and it's not just I get that, but this is how I can apply that to learning design. You know, this is how I can change this activity or this learning that I'm supporting these principles.
Yeah, I agree with you. It takes one to think what is the goal they want to achieve in order to ensure the quality they in that part, you know. So it can be for everyone, it can be differently. Benoit, what do you say? High quality education, how do you ensure it?
Well, I completely agree with Dean. You know, I don't know if high quality I don't know if we can define it, but I think equality is at first a project, a university project. And for each university, the project is not the same. For example, I just work on a paper for EJUL, you know, the lifelong learning journal of UK. And I propose to consider 3 quality models. The first one, I call it attractiveness. You know, it's quality for attractivity. You have to attract students and teachers. And you have to valorize diplomas within society. That means university reputation, training program mediatization, teachers in the media, so you do media training with them and stuff. And then at the end, you know, when your students have this diploma, you know, the diploma has echoes, you know, as a workforce, you know, in employment. The second model is excellence, which has called for high performance university. You are seeking, for example, for university rankings, the Times Higher Education ranking, Shanghai ranking, Nobel Prizes, or other kind of prizes, awards, basically. And those awards, they have impact, on society. You produce research, you produce new skills, you produce new skills, for example, in medicine, biology, which are a strong part of university teaching in France, it's a really important thing to have some research and performance background. And the third model would be user service. You kind of measure the expectations of your publics and you try to fulfill them. You try to feel, what they want as it. And then we do frameworks, for information to alumni, from the quality of pedagogical resources, for the utility of our digital environment and stuff. And the question is, how do we evaluate, those programs? Do we have some internal evaluations within universities or in the universities? Do we want to be evaluated by other parts, totally independent, maybe private, as in France, all universities belong to the public sector, that's okay. But, those three models, they don't match. And that's the point, You can have excellence and attractivity, for example, but if you direct a university, if you're a vice president, that means you don't hire the same people. You have a big communication department, or you have a big staff, that helps you to build some research program and some training program. So it's kind of a project, a goal, and we kind of always have to find a way, and have to find our place, in this university landscape.
Yeah, I agree. Gil, you wanted to add something?
Yes, you mentioned research a few times, and I think we've talked about the differences in how we teach people to teach. And I think the problem's worse than that, because some institutions value research and academic research much more highly, that they don't really care about the teaching. We get bright students anyway, it doesn't matter whether we teach them or not, is the attitude that you hear in practically in some institutions, that we need to value teaching more and actually emphasize the relevance to good research as well, because we're not just teaching these people for jobs that don't exist yet, but we're actually, that we're developing the researchers of the future to make connections and create disciplines that don't even exist yet. And somebody put in the chat a kind of shout out, badging and micro credentials. But it's another of the values of actually recognizing bits of this learning that you may not quite be sure why you're going to use it yet, but suddenly some of these components come together in a way in the future that this is where where it was a whole new area of research that nobody envisaged a few years ago when I did that degree, and now I can take those chunks forward and use it. So there is value in teaching people to learn, and there's value in good teaching, and we've got to recognize that.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned, several of you mentioned research. How much is research important, and how much is it used for defining high quality education at the institution? How much does the universities use research results in shaping their strategies in order to have high quality education? Who would like to volunteer for the answer on that? What is your thinking, Benoit?
But it's really a strategy. For example, I say the Gustave Eiffel University in Marne-la-Vallée in France near Disneyland. They kind of focus on cities. So that means smart cities, ecological cities. How do we live in cities? And they do research on it. With both thermodynamics, sociology, communication, and stuff. And then the curriculum are within that field in cities. And we have, they are now building the University Institute for tomorrow cities. That's a strategy, You both have research and teaching on the same subject. And in fact, it's kind of a continuous improvement process, because if you don't have research, you are going to do the same course for 15 years, like thermodynamics. You know, if you do a physics curriculum, okay, you have to learn about thermodynamics. But if you don't do any paper about it, if you don't do any experiment, if you don't have any research project, you are going to say the same things about thermodynamics for 15 years.
Yeah, I agree with you, but we still do have same thing for 15 years, you know, because it's easier in that way. And especially if you have a big universities with a large number of students and number of study programs, sometimes it's quite difficult to make some shifts and changes in strategical way. So yes, that can be an issue, but somehow I do think that sometimes we do neglect the research part in shaping education according to the students' need, not just only in the topic, but in the case of methodologies, the forms, you know, of teaching and learning, approaches to students, and things like that. In design of courses and so on, because every teacher is an island, I would say, mostly. They do their own research, but how much is it shared between them, and how much is it shared on the management level, on the policy level, that can be implemented on a larger scale. Okay, let's move to another question. With rapid advancements in educational technologies, what strategies should be prioritized to ensure that these tools enhance accessibility and equity rather than widening existing gaps in education? Okay, what would you say here?
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing is last week in the US, when we did National Distance Learning Week, one of my friends was the keynote, Dr. Rebecca Reese, and her title was "Don't let perfection be the enemy of accessibility." Right? It was a great keynote. So I'm totally stealing from her. The first thing I would say is don't let perfection be the enemy when it comes to accessibility or equity. We can get there. And what I mean by that is look first at the tool and see if the tool, the educational technology tool, can be used. Okay? And then start working on the accessibility. You have brilliant people who work with you who are underutilized, who can probably help you come up with a solution. And I'm just going to use a very light example. And my example, and this is for anyone out there, go ahead and type in yes or no. Do your students love doing online discussions? So if anybody wants to type in yes or no, type in yes or no. Yes, it's a continual motivational problem. Online discussions. Okay, and the discussions are usually locked in that LMS box, the learning management system box, right? And a lot of administrators like to keep you locked in there, right? What we've been trying to do with some of our programs is taking them out and having them use relevant tools. For example, Slack. Okay, Slack's a great argument that I can have with the IT departments, because every IT department, at least in the US, is using Slack to answer questions or something like that. So I can argue Slack all day on why our students use Slack. Then there's Discord. Now Discord is used by a lot of gamers, but Discord is, and I use Discord when I teach and in the program I teach in. And we use Discord because guess what? All the AI platforms out there that are starting up use Discord. For example, Midjourney, the image AI generator, uses Discord. You want to talk to them, you have to get on Discord to be able to talk to them. That's not that locked in LMS. Okay. And the other thing about it is we're also looking at the project management tool Basecamp. Can we do some evolving discussions using Basecamp? So what I'm saying for these things is look and see how they can be made accessible. Look and see how you can ensure equity. Don't take that no for an answer. IT, now you might have wonderful IT people at your institution. For me, they're gatekeepers. So the strategy, and I should say I'm more a tactician than a strategist. The tactic is always be ready to come up with why you should be using something that is relevant. And that's why you can then jump over to AI. That's how we've done it.
Good, thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, and I it's funny because I'm taking sort of a different line of thought, because when I'm seeing sort of in the sector as a whole, and I'm thinking beyond just the educational, education circles and the ed tech circles, but sector wide as a whole, we have so many faculty and students who came into the pandemic having not been familiar with teaching and learning online, with technology tools and things like that. So for them, for some of us in the field, this is old news. We've been teaching with technology for years. This is very comfortable to us. For others, it's still very, very new, and it almost feels to them like something that was brought about by the pandemic. So the pandemic introduced these tools, and they aren't aware of this whole field of distance learning and online learning that we've been a part of for decades now. And I think that that's really important to recognize in that. I think it's important to recognize I know in Canada, one of the most pressing issues right now in tertiary education or higher education is faculty fatigue and burnout. So the idea of learning new tools is really difficult. For students too, you have to think of the financial cost in tools, but also the cognitive cost when they're under stress. What's the mental cost of them teaching and learning things? So one of the best advice, and it kind of goes counter to what we sort of sometimes move towards in the ed tech field, is, innovate try new things. I often go back to keeping it simple. What are the technologies that people are familiar with? And this varies by context to context. So you're in an educational context, which is very innovative, where the faculty and students are very comfortable with technology. I would suggest then for sure there's much more room to push the boundaries, to try new things, to do new things. When you're in a context where ed tech feels very relatively new, then it's what are tried, tested and true technologies that people are familiar with. One of the frustrations that came out amongst students in the pandemic was having to learn a bunch of new tools, and faculty too, I've got to do things, on Slack on one class, on Discord and another, to pull from Kay's examples that she used, and students going, well, why can't we just use the same thing across the board? I need to learn my work, not just learn these tools to do. And I think that's important accessibility wise from an affordability standpoint as well. If students have to invest in new technologies, wonderful things can be happening in a VR, AR context with, headsets and all those things, but can people access that? So I think that's this balance between pushing the limits and also keeping it simple for those who need it. And then at the same time, keeping the door open on a student by student basis. So if a student is coming in with a particular disability, where they need to submit things in a different way, does it make sense for them to do voice to text versus writing things out? We know we've got technology there. So there's a bunch of tensions that exist when it comes to accessibility between what the individual needs and then what the group needs in order to function successfully, and the level of comfort with technology or newness of the technology to the group.
Yeah, I agree very much with you. Often we do forget that by providing new technologies, actually we assess students in use of technology and in subject we want to assess. So we have comments, Gil, then Benoit. Please, Gil.
I think you've given two great answers as well to this question about motivation. It's down to relevance, isn't it? That actually, if a learner can see why they're doing this learning activity, and they're not just forced to use some tool that they're never going to use again, like being forced to, exams being forced to memorize stuff and write very fast for 3 hours. When am I ever going to need to do that again? Seeing that they're using the tools of the day, it's authenticity that Joseph talked about in terms of the learning activities and how they're going to be assessed. But Nicole summed up a really important problem as well, that we don't just lift the bar for the digital divide. And you could see that happening with AI as well, that it's there to stay. So we've got to have, everybody's got to have a level of training, and we've got to help our students engage with these free tools. So what's that going to do to the market? At some point, everybody will be getting the same from the free tools. So we lift the bar, and it's only going to be the students who can afford the paid for supplement subscriptions that will actually get the additional benefits. It's one of these wicked problems, I guess.
Yes, definitely. Benoit, you are on turn. I'll just pop the other question for the audience while you answer. So please, your comment.
No, I just wonder, as a scholar, if our universities, for me, I think they are becoming like media, in fact, and that's a new paradigm. When I first began as a teacher, my technologies were printing and microphones, and I had to deal with it, in order to teach, in order to have some communication with my audience. Now I face with video projection, digital environment, presential social tools and stuff. And that's a new shift, it reminds me of Marshall McLuhan, in his famous works, when he said, we are leaving the Gutenberg galaxy and we are becoming another galaxy, the global village and stuff. But I think that's our situation today in universities. And then we have to shift, from a more maybe textual approach. For example, we have assessments that are mostly textual, to maybe some other kind of approach. Maybe we didn't talk about entrepreneurship and stuff, but that could be issues and that could be solutions, because universities, they live in a new media environment, but they have to be part of it. And the pandemic really showed that we were late, in that respect.
Sandra, I just want to add to what the panelists have so far. Kind of, if we have to summarize, okay, we need to take care of the access to technology infrastructure. We make it affordable, open source content, digital. I will add digital literacy. Universal design. How can we accommodate those students? How can we make the content relevant? Yes, but again, as Benoit said, in terms of and Jill, in terms of the different learner that we have. But I am big on data privacy and student privacy, and to me, that's something that should be also on the top of the priority, in a sense of how can we make sure whatever content is provided and whatever student information, as well as the professor teaching, how can we make it sure that it is protected? And the last one I will add in terms of how can we make the content inclusive? In terms of, yes, I want all the students. The digital divide, if there's anything that the pandemic has basically bubbled to the top, is the digital divide. Not everyone had a computer, not everyone had reliable internet, and anything in between. But how can we even make the content of the course more inclusive and more diverse representation across different curricula? Again, no different than when we hire professors. They need to have one way or another a representation of the community where they are or the community that they serve. That's how the student looking at them in terms like, yes, I can be like Professor blah, blah, whatever for that. And when we talk about, again, when we survey, I'll speak for STEM, that's my area. Again, when we introduce content, we talk about, okay, the history. And if you compare different textbooks, you have the same people mentioned. So the movie Hidden Figures, that's when people find out, wait, the US went there because, and here's the help, and those people, they have never been mentioned in any textbook as an example. Same thing when we talk about, again, the advance in science and the cells of Arieta Lux, currently used still as of right now in the research. Few textbooks mention it. So that's, to me, added to everything that was mentioned here in terms of three main things: universal design, the digital privacy and the data privacy, as well as how can we make the content more inclusive and more representative, not limited to the same John Smith every single time.
Yeah, I agree. Gil, you wanted to add?
That's absolutely one of the problems we've got to solve in order to support lifelong learning as well, because the student population is getting more and more diverse. You no longer study one subject and that's your career and it just evolves slightly for life. We're going to be coming back as learners more and more often. And how do we bring our diversity and our life experiences to that? How do we build the curriculum around what we've actually got to share with our peers and what we've already known and learned, and the fact that we've worked in different industries and bring something to that, and we've got to be better at having a less static curriculum and allowing learners to actually bring their own experiences and the skills they've already got into that.
Yeah, we see the answers to the question: how beneficial do you think digital tools are for enhancing personalized learning experiences and supporting educators and teaching and learning? Personalization of learning process is also one topic we were not able to tackle, but it's also very important because of diversified student population that we have. So looking at the majority, think it's very beneficial. We do have also some answers which are not finding it too beneficial, but okay, that's the diversity of us as educators and teachers, to see how we can adapt what is best for our environment, teaching and learning environment. And thank you to participants for sharing their answers. We are coming to the end of our session. Maybe before the end, I would like to ask each of you. We talk about the community and importance of community sharing knowledge and expertise. And as each of you are part of an association which is working on promoting digital teaching and learning, digital education, in order to enhance its quality and accessibility and equity, and to shape it to be a better for students, for all the learners today, but also to ensure that it's even more better for the future. Maybe just as your last thought, how to shape how you can contribute through the association, through the community, to shaping tomorrow's education. Maybe Joseph, we can start with you first. You have to open the mic.
Okay, thank you, Sandra. Just very short, but from the point of view from Eden, for instance, and I think it's something that maybe we agree on all of our different associations. I think it's very important to help from the association to expand the knowledge. For instance, the thing that we are doing now here, to try to expand this knowledge and to share with other people. And another item that we like to remark or highlight is I think it's important that these associations try to build with their members and also other people interested in the association, a kind of digital education communities. It means communities of practices, etc., places where the people can discuss and can find best practices, etc. The other thing that Benoit mentioned and other people mentioned before, it's a platform not to share research reports. Of course, research reports based in evidence, And finally, I think it's important from the institutions to participate in the process, for the policy making. For instance, Eden is participating with the European Commission in different working groups, and also in the European Digital Education Hub, etc. I would like to highlight these only 4 items.
Thank you. Thank you, Farah and Kay.
For the US Distance Learning Association, one way how, and we are doing many of, we have several initiatives in this arena. one of them is the collaboration with the European network and share the best practice. So we also have the public forum policy that we have in September as well as in October. So kind of it's the advocacy for policy changes. We do facilitate professional development, and again, it is open for all the members that we have both in the US as well as globally. Promote best practice and research, and we have it through the National Distance Learning Week as well as our annual conference, where basically kind of we come and share. That's a good basically place where scholars can basically share their best practice and experience that they have done. Collaborating with the industry, that's something that I will advocate moving forward, in a sense of how can we, again, just to maintain the relevancy, and we have different learner, we have long life learner. So how can we meet your industry while we have the tool? We're the pioneer for over 28 years as the pioneer in the online learning. So how can we basically provide this learning experience for you working in whatever corporation, but we have the tools, how we can basically make it a la carte for your need and for your industry. And of course, the continued process that we talk about in terms of how can we support the long life learner.
Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to say something a little different. Okay, I'm a chair of a state association, so a Colorado association. First of all, it's share everything, because your people can go back to their institution and say, like for me at the community college, I go, oh, the universities are doing this. If the universities are doing this, why can't we do that? And the universities do the same with the community colleges. They go, oh, if it can be done at the community college, why can't we do it at the university? So share everything. I also want to say that these kind of associations can get us out of our administrative groupthink that our institution does. Our institution has rules, our institution has ways of doing things, but these kind of associations really allow us to see, what's an alternative pathway? How could you do it differently? And these kind of associations can also give you allies if you want to try to do change for your institution. So I would say that the best thing that these kind of associations, besides sharing, it gives you a place where you can you can talk about divergent ideas that maybe you can't talk about at your institution. So that's what I would say some of the value that we bring are.
Thank you. Benoit?
No, I totally agree, with what, for example, Joseph and Farah said, because from what I see, I think these new tools in teaching, they're kind of individual or isolated initiatives in our universities, mostly. And it can't work that way. If you want to build innovation, that means we want to build a collectivity and a community. When you build an online course, you need engineers, you need support, you need colleagues. You can't build it alone on your own. You have to work collectively and stuff. And in fact, if we can't exchange best practices, if we can't give tips, if we can't value the work we do, which is a different work, even value them, in how we teach and in how universities count our teaching hours. Because in French, for example, we have to teach, we count them face to face with students. So if you do online course, in fact, you lose money when you're a teacher. So that's a weird problem. But we have to, build communities, build best practices, build exchange dialogues. That's everything we can do. And our associations, that's the goals for me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Nicole?
Yeah, and I think thinking about ICDE in the community is a very global community, and one of the benefits that I really find is every 2 years we have a global conference, and it's coming back, and that reconnecting to the global community on best practices, I think through that we see a lot of similarities in what we're all experiencing around the world, which can be very nice to hear, but we can also bring together the differences that we're seeing. I know in my work, one of the advantages through my consulting practice and what I do is I often get to engage with communities that are outside of the EdTech space. And so these communities to whom, again, that educational technology or technology in teaching and learning feels very new. And by being connected with the Global Association, which has such a long, rich history of distance education, of online education, it keeps me grounded in those best practices that I can then, in many ways, be a representative amongst other communities and bringing to them ideas that are, very, very tried and true and very long lasting, but are also new to these other communities who are really diving into the online learning and technology use and learning space, as like we talked about in sort of the beginning of our talk today with the pandemic as the catalyst. And so I think that that's, critical. And it also helps us to understand and I had mentioned this earlier on too, what people are talking about in reality when they're talking about challenges with new technologies. So I had said when people are talking about AI, they're often actually talking about academic integrity in, non-traditional learning contexts. And really, we have tons of experience in that. That's not a new conversation for those of us who have been part of these educational communities for, many, many years. And this helps us bring tested solutions to these problems that feel, new to people outside of the EdTech space, but really are actually long-lasting underlying issues that we've been working through for a long time. So I think again, that association being connected, it helps us to be good representatives, but also helps us to know what's going on around the world and see what's similar, what's different, and how we can work together to move forward.
Yeah, thank you. And Gil, your comment.
Everything that's already been said. I think just about everyone's mentioned collaboration and the collaborative spirit within the sector. I think we do have such a breadth of experience, across these organizations, but a willingness to share that you maybe don't see so often in other sectors as well. And within UNIS and One EdTech, I think we do a lot of capacity building and levelling up as well through our special interest groups, our working groups. You've got larger, better resourced organisations that they're sharing their experience, they're sharing their capabilities in some areas, but they're also learning from different use cases and specialist skills that other organisations bring. So we're all contributing something. The links with industry as well, yes, because we are, they need that perspective on the pedagogy, on what directions are important, on what we're actually trying to achieve. And I think from the UNIS and One EdTech Europe perspective, there's a uniquely European element to this as well, in terms of the experience we've got, the ability we've got working across national, across linguistic boundaries, we've done all of that. We've distilled kind of what we've got in common, what some of these differences are. And we bring an important set of values to the world stage as well. I think whether it's around things like digital sovereignty, data privacy, how we're reacting to AI. I think there's a European perspective on this that brings something useful to the conversation.
Thank you. I think that it's important that we connect, definitely, and no man is an island. If we work only on our own, then the impact will be really small. If we work jointly, then we can make a huge impact on a larger scale. And that is why I think that it's very important to the community influence is really important. First of all, you can hear others, you can get to see new things, you can join some people and make some efforts in that field. And networking, connecting, providing platforms for collaboration will enable us to move faster and higher, I would say. And just briefly, before we leave, I need to share just a few last slides. Okay, so just to share with you that, that we have one more session tomorrow, which is going to be on university alliances. It will start at 1 o'clock. Then I would like to announce the EDEN Annual Conference 2025, which will be in Bologna, Italy, in mid-June. And also to join EDEN as a member, certainly there are lots of beneficiaries you can get as a member. And also EDEN is working very much in the European Digital Education Hub. And just to announce that we have the key knowledge building activity session, which is on December 11 on teacher well-being. So you can join us and share the views on how it is to be a teacher in digital education. And basically that's what I want to share. I wish to thank my speakers for joining me today, for sharing their views and expertise. And I wish to thank the audience who also engaged with us. And well, let's move on and build a stronger community for better education today and tomorrow. Thank you all. Bye.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.